Hello friends, this is me, your host. Welcome back to our channel. I hope you all are well and doing great. Today I am back with another video to give a review on three books. So we're going to see today these three of them and tell me which one did you like the most in the comment section. First one is the Lost Rainforests. These three of the books are about the environmentalist books. Books about nature often fall into categories. Either they celebrate the wonder of the natural world or they mourn what has been lost. The Lost Rainforest is a rare and powerful work that does both at once. Written with the dual spirit of scientific inquiry and lyrical reflection, it is a book that transports readers into the dense, humid, and dazzlingly complex world of the tropical rainforest, while also confronting them with the devastating realities of deforestation, exploitation, and cultural erosion. Rainforests are sometimes described as the lungs of the earth, absorbing vast quantities of carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. But this metaphor, while evocative, only hints at the true importance, as this book makes clear. Rainforests are not merely carbon sinks or exotic backdrops. They are living, breathing archives of biological diversity, human culture, and planetary stability. Their destruction is not a distant tragedy unfolding in remote corners of the globe. It is a direct threat to human survival everywhere. In this review, I will explore the book structure, its central themes, and its effectiveness as both an environmental text and a literary achievement. I will also evaluate its strengths and weaknesses and reflect on the broader impact it may have on readers, policymakers, and conservationists. Chapter by chapter analysis. Chapter 1: Entering the Green Cathedral. The opening chapter draws readers into the sensory experience of the rainforest. The author uses immersive descriptions to capture the towering trees, the sounds of countless insects, the constant humidity, and the interplay of light and shadow beneath the canopy. The rainforest is likened to a cathedral, suggesting not just beauty but also reverence and sacredness. This chapter establishes the book's central thesis. Rainforests are not empty wilderness, but living, breathing systems that demand respect. They are spaces of spiritual significance, ecological importance, and human history. Chapter 2: The Hidden Wealth of Rainforests. The second chapter focuses on the biodiversity of rainforests, portraying them as immense biological libraries. The author explains that more than half of the world's species are found in rainforests, many of which have not yet been catalogued by science. Plants that indigenous peoples have long used for healing contain chemical compounds that modern medicine is only beginning to harness. The tragedy is that species are disappearing before they can even be studied. The rainforest is described as a library on fire. Each felled tree a burnt page, each extinct species a lost story. Chapter 3: Indigenous Guardians. This chapter is devoted to indigenous communities who for millennia have lived in symbiosis with the rainforest. Their farming practices, rituals, and oral traditions reveal deep ecological knowledge. The author gives examples from Amazonian tribes who practice rotational farming, ensuring soil fertility, and from Borneo, where indigenous groups use complex systems of taboos to regulate hunting. The message is clear: the rainforest has never been empty of people. The myth of untouched wilderness raises indigenous stewardship, and modern conservation efforts must recognize their role as rightful guardians. Chapter 4: Engines of Destruction. Here the book turns darker, documenting the relentless forces of deforestation. Industrial logging, often illegal, feeding global demand for timber and paper. Agriculture expansion, particularly palm oil plantations in Southeast Asia and cattle ranching in South America. Mining and infrastructure, from coal extraction to roads that fragment ecosystems. Climate-induced fires worsened by human clearing practices. The author uses striking statistics: hectares of rainforests are lost every minute, releasing massive amounts of carbon and undermining global climate stability. Readers are forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that everyday consumer goods, chocolate, beef, coffee, cosmetics, are often tied to rainforest destruction. Chapter 5: Rainforests and the Climate Crisis. This chapter underscores the role of rainforests in climate regulation. They are crucial carbon sinks, motorcycle regulators, and even influence global weather systems. The loss of Amazon, for instance, could push it past a tipping point, turning vast areas into dry savanna and altering rainfall patterns across the globe. The interconnectedness is stark. Deforestation in Brazil could affect agricultural productivity in Africa or monsoon patterns in Asia. This chapter effectively situates rainforest loss as not as a local issue but as a planetary emergency. Chapter 6: Stories of Resistance and Hope. After several heavy chapters, the tone shifts. Here the author presents inspiring examples of resistance. Community-based conservation projects in the Congo Basin, reforestation efforts in Costa Rica, where degraded land has been successfully restored. International campaigns that pressured corporations to adopt deforestation-free supply chains. While these successes are modest compared to the scale of destruction, they demonstrate that action is possible and that local communities are often at the forefront of meaningful change. Chapter 7: Remembering and Reimagining. The book closes with reflection. Some losses are irreversible. Species gone forever, cultures destroyed. But mourning alone is not enough. The author calls for reimagining humanity's relationships with rainforests. The chapter ends on a cautiously helpful note. Through time is short, action is still possible. Major themes: interconnectedness of life. Rainforests are not isolated ecosystems, but threads in the web of life. Their health affects everything from climate regulation to species survival to human food security. Cultural and spiritual loss.
Cultural and spiritual loss. The disappearance of rainforests is not only biological but also cultural. Indigenous languages, stories, and spiritual practices are tied to the forest and vanish when it is destroyed. Colonial legacies. Modern exploitation echoes colonial extraction, whether through rubber plantations in the past or palm oil today. The pattern is the same: short time gain for outside powers, long term devastation for local peoples and landscapes. Urgency and responsibility. The book emphasizes that rainforest destruction is not inevitable, it is a result of human choices. Therefore, humans also have the power to preserve or halt it. Writing style and approach. The author's style combines lyricism and analysis. At times, the prose is almost poetic, capturing the sensory richness of the rainforest. At other times, it is sharply factual, drawing on data, scientific studies, and case histories. This balance keeps the reader engaged intellectually and emotionally. The use of personal anecdotes, walking through muddy forest paths, encountering local guides, witnessing fires, adds immediacy. The inclusion of indigenous voices prevents the book from falling into a purely Western perspective. Strengths: holistic scope brings together ecology, culture, politics, and spirituality. Authenticity amplifies indigenous knowledge and lived experiences. Accessibility clear writing makes complex science understandable. Emotional power the book stirs both grief and awe. Inspirational elements offers hopeful stories of resistance, preventing total despair. Conclusion. The Lost The Lost Rainforest is an urgent, moving, and deeply significant book. It combines ecological science, cultural history, and moral reflection into a powerful narrative. By guiding readers through the beauty of rainforests, the devastation of their loss, and the possibilities of renewal. It accomplishes more than most environmental books. It is not only informs but transforms. While it could have included more concrete policy guidance or deeper regional case studies, its strength lies in its ability to inspire empathy and urgency. It leaves readers with a haunting but essential truth. The fate of rainforests is not only about faraway lands, it is about the future of life on Earth. As a full work of environmental literature, the Lost Rainforest deserves to be read, discussed, and acted upon. It is both a eulogy for what has been lost and a manifesto for what can still be saved. The next book which we're going to see today about the environmental or nature is the Rewilding the Sea by Charles Clover. Introduction. Ocean has always been humanity's greatest paradox. It is vast and seemingly infinite, covering more than 70% of the Earth's surface, holding 97% of the planet's water, and producing around half of the oxygen we breathe. For millennia, the sea has provided food, trade routes, cultural myths, and even a sense of mystery and awe. Yet today, the oceans are in crisis. Despite their immensity, they are alarmingly fragile. In the face of industrial exploitation, in his compelling and hopeful book, Rewilding the Sea, journalist and environmental campaigner Charles Clover, co-founder of the Blue Marine Foundation, offers both a diagnosis of this crisis and a prescription for recovery. Building on his earlier investigative work, The End of Line 2004, Clover argues that if we stop overexploiting marine ecosystems and marine ecosystems instead give them space to recover, the seas can rebound with astonishing speed. His central thesis is that rewilding, allowing nature to restore itself, can transform the oceans just as it has begun to transform degraded landscapes on land. This review explores Clover's arguments in detail, presenting a chapter by chapter summary, drawing out key themes, and situating the book in broader debates about conservation, food security, and climate resilience. It will also provide a critical evaluation of his style, strengths, and shortcomings before concluding with reflections on wider significance of his work. Chapter by chapter analysis. Chapter 1, The Empty Oceans. Clover opens with the sober reality. The oceans we know today are shadows of what they once were. Industrial fishing fleets equipped with sonar, factory trawlers, and bottom dredging equipment, have stripped the seas of their former abundance. He uses the collapse of the Newfoundland cod fishery in the early 1990s as a cautionary tale. Once one of the richest fisheries on earth, it was devastated by overfishing, leaving tens of thousands unemployed and ecosystems destabilized. Even decades later, cod stocks have not recovered, a reminder of how overexploitation can trigger long term ecological collapse. Clover's central point is clear: human activity has pushed the oceans beyond their limits. By drawing on historical records and oral accounts from older fishermen who recall seas boiling with fish, Clover highlights the dramatic losses that are invisible to younger generations. Chapter 2: Shifting Baselines. Here Clover introduces the powerful concepts of shifting baseline syndrome. Each generation inherits an impoverished version of nature and expect it as the new normal. Fishermen who once caught giant halibut in shallow waters now regard smaller fish as typical. Tourists snorkeling over bleached corals assume reefs have always looked pale and lifeless. Chapter 3: Power of Protection. One of the book's most compelling characters examines the transformative impact of marine protected areas, especially no-take zones, where fishing and extractions are prohibited. Clover presents several case studies that serve as proof of concept. Clover emphasizes that the recovery is often faster than expected, sometimes within 5 to 10 years. These examples dismantle the myth that marine conservation is incompatible with human needs. Instead, they show that protection creates abundance, benefiting both ecosystems and people. Chapter 4: The Politics of the Sea. While the science of rewilding is clear, the politics are messy. Clover devotes this chapter to exploring how governments, industries, and international bodies have failed to safeguard the seas. He critiques the European Union's common fisheries policies, which, despite reforms, has too often prioritized short term industry interests over long sustainability. Clover argues that political will, not scientific knowledge, is the primary barrier to marine rewilding. He calls for stronger international cooperation, better enforcement, and a shift in public pressure to hold governments accountable. Oceans and climate. Community action and local heroes. Perhaps the most hopeful section of the book, this chapter highlights efforts by communities who have taken marine recovery into their own hands. In the Philippines, local villages create small no-take zones that revitalized coral reefs and ensured sustainable fishing. A vision for the future. The final chapter lays out Clover vision protecting at least 30% of the world's ocean by 2030. This global target, endorsed by scientists and conservationists, is ambitious but necessary. Currently, only about 8% of oceans are protected, and only a fraction of those areas are effectively enforced. Key themes and insights. Nature's resilience. One of the book's most striking messages is how quickly the oceans can recover. Whether in Cabo Pulmo or Lamlash Bay, ecosystems have rebounded within a decade, showing that despair is misplaced. Equity and justice. Clover highlights how industrial fleets often plunder the waters of developing nations, undermining local writing style and approach. Clover's style combines the clarity of journalism with the passion of activism. His narrative is vivid, drawing readers into the urgency of the crisis while offering concrete. He blends hard data with storytelling, balancing facts with human voices from fishermen, scientists, and activists. Unlike some environmental texts that overwhelm with despair, Clover maintains a tone of political hope. This makes accessible to both general readers and policymakers. Conclusion. Rewilding the Sea is a powerful call to action. It challenges readers to confront the stark reality of ocean decline while also inspiring them with evidence of rapid recovery. Clover's central argument that nature can heal itself if given the chance. While the book could have engaged more deeply with economic and policy mechanisms, its great strength lies in its accessibility. It is persuasive evidence. It serves as both a warning and a beacon of hope. Above all, it leaves us with a vision of abundance, thriving coral reefs, teeming fish stocks, protected coastlines. This is not a utopian dream, it is an achievable reality, but only if we act with urgency. In the end, Clover's book reminds us that rewilding the sea is not just about saving nature, it is about saving ourselves. The last book which we're going to see today is the How to Avoid a Climate Disaster by Bill Gates. Introduction. Climate change is arguably the greatest challenge of our time. Rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, biodiversity loss, and sea level rise threaten ecosystem, economies, and human lives on a scale never seen before. While the scientific community has long sounded the alarm, the transition from knowledge to action has often been slow. Hindered by political inertia, economic interests, and public misunderstanding. In how to avoid a climate disaster, the solutions we have and the breakthroughs we need, Bill Gates, co founder of Microsoft, philanthropist, and one of the most influential voices in technology and global development, sets out his vision. This review offers a comprehensive exploration of the book, including chapter by chapter summaries, thematic analysis, and critical reflection. It aims to assess both the strengths and shortcomings of Gates' arguments and to situate the book within the broader discourse on climate action. Chapter by chapter summary. Chapter 1 by 0. Gates begins by stating the fundamental problem. humanity currently emits around 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases every year. And unless this number falls to zero, the planet will continue warming with small amounts of continued warming with catastrophic consequences. Reducing emission is not enough. We must aim for net zero because even small amounts of continued emissions accumulate in the atmosphere. This will be hard. This will be hard. Here, Gates acknowledges the scale of the challenge. The modern world depends on fossil fuels for electricity. Chapter 3 5 questions to ask in every climate conservation. Gates proposes a framework for evaluating climate solutions. What's your plan for cement? How much space do you need? How much power do you need? How much is it going to cost? These questions emphasize practically scalability and cost effectiveness. Chapter 4 How we plug in electricity. Electricity accounts for about 27% of global emissions. Gates discusses the need to expand clean energy sources to address intermittency. He stresses the importance of modernizing electrical grids and investing in next generation nuclear technologies. How we make things manufacturing. Agriculture produces 19% of emissions, much of it from methane released by livestock and nitrous oxide from fertilizers. Gates discusses dietary shifts, synthetic meat alternatives, improved fertilizers, and better land use management. He is cautiously optimistic about lab grown meat and plant based proteins. How we get around. Agriculture produces around 19% of emissions. Transportation is responsible about 16% of emissions. While electric cars are promising, aviation, shipping, and long haul trucking remain difficult to decarbonize. Gates advocate for advances in biofuels, synthetic fuels, and electrification of short distance travel. Adapting to a warmer world. Even if emissions drop, warming is inevitable. Gates emphasizes the importance of adaptation improving infrastructure, developing drought resistant crops, and investing in disaster preparedness. However, he warns adaptation is not a substitute for migration. Chapter 10: Why Government Policies Matter. Gates highlights the crucial role of governments in setting regulations, investing in R&D, and creating markets for clean technologies. He underscores the need for carbon pricing subsidies, for clean energy, and international cooperation. A plan for getting to zero. Gates synthesizes his arguments into a roadmap. Gates synthesizes his argument deploy existing technologies, invest heavily in innovation for hard to decarbonize sectors, scale up financing for green projects, ensure equity by helping developing nations transition. What each of us can do. Gates concludes by addressing individuals' action, voting for climate conscious leaders, reducing personal carbon footprints, supporting clean tech, and advocating for synthetic chain. He insists that while lifestyle choices matter, policy and innovation will drive the biggest transformations. Key themes: the centrality of innovation. Gates' thesis rests on the belief that technological innovation is essential to achieving net zero, from advanced nuclear reactors to carbon capture and synthetic fuels. He argues that breakthroughs will make clean alternatives affordable and scalable. Global equity. Climate change disproportionately affects poorer nations, which often lack resources to adapt. Gates advocates for international support to ensure that Global South can leapfrog to clean technologies without sacrificing development. Paramagnetism over idealism. Gates positions himself as a realist, emphasizing solutions that balance environmental goals with economic realities. He cautions against relying solely on lifestyle changes on renewable energy, arguing instead for a portfolio approach. Strengths of the book: clarity and accessibility. Gates explains complex scientific and technical issues in plain language. Holistic scope. The book addresses every major sector of emissions. Data driven. Gates supports his arguments with statistics charts, and case studies. Optimistic yet realistic. The tone balances urgency with hope. Actionable framework provides both systematic and individual pathways for action. Conclusion: How to Avoid a Climate Disaster is a timely, accessible, and thought provoking contribution to climate literature. Gates provides a clear eyed assessment of the challenges and a roadmap centered on innovation, policy, and global cooperation. While the book's heavy reliance on technological solutions may not satisfy all readers, particularly those who emphasize systematic inequality, grassroots activism, or post growth economics, it succeeds in its central mission, making the case that net zero by 2050 is achievable if humanity mobilizes its resources and ingenuity. Ultimately, Gates leaves us with both a warning and a call to action. The task is immense, but the tools exist, and the time is now. So, this is all we have from this book. I hope you guys liked these three of the books. If you did, don't forget to press the like button. I'll be back with another video with another book. Till then, just take care and goodbye.